With us now to talk much more about all of this is a former IDF spokesperson, retired Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus. Thank you so much for coming in. It's good to see you. So this new reporting that Israeli special forces have been carrying out targeted raids into southern Lebanon, gathering intelligence ahead of a possible ground incursion. From your experience, if this is happening, do you think a ground incursion is inevitable?
Well, nothing is inevitable. First of all, good morning to you, and thanks for having me. Nothing is inevitable if, at this stage, ceasefire agreements or talks would be successful, and the French and the Americans would get Hezbollah to agree to implement Security Council Resolution 1701 and move beyond the Litani River, then no such ground operations would be necessary. Israeli civilians would be able to move back to their homes, and I think Israel would be very happy to avail itself to other threats that it has against its national security, unfinished business in Gaza and elsewhere. So no, this is definitely something that can be avoided, but as the trajectory is now, it looks as if nobody's really making it something that can be avoidable, and Israel, as a sovereign country, has a responsibility towards its people to allow them to go home safely. And I think the operations and what you refer to, the information, is part of making that happen and taking the necessary preparations in order to bring their civilians home.
President Biden said yesterday that the way he kind of put it was that there has to be a way to avoid a broader war. The trajectory that you were just mentioning, do you think it is realistic to think the region will avoid a broader war?
So one thing that I think is given, and it is a must, is that Israeli civilians must be able to go home to their homes safely, without being threatened by Hezbollah cross-border attacks or anti-tank missiles being fired at their homes, which they have been for the last 11 and a half months. So that's the end situation that Israel needs to achieve. How do we get there? Do we get there by a ceasefire agreement or by military action? That's very much up to Hezbollah and their Iranian masters. They could, understand the situation, and they could understand that Israel is very serious about getting its people home. But at the end of the day, I don't think that the Iranian masters are going to allow that to happen, and I think that they're going to push Lebanon over the abyss. I think that they are going to tell Hezbollah that there's no option but to push forward and to escalate this into war. I, as an Israeli, would hope to see a different situation where it's not necessary and Israelis can go back to their homes without having Israeli ground troops in Lebanon. But eventually, somehow... Hello?
Jonathan, I think you were hearing some of the natural sound, some of the sound from some of the video we were showing, which can be confusing sometimes. Sorry about that. Let me ask you this, because at the same time, when you add all of it up that you were just describing, you also had Israel bombing Houthi targets in Yemen Sunday. Why? Why do that now?
The Houthis, you ask a good question, because when you ask why now, and not 9 or 10 or 11 months ago, that's a fair question, because the Houthis have been firing missiles, ballistic missiles, at Israel for about 10 and a half, 11 months. And only now is the second time that Israel retaliated in significant force against the Houthis. The first time was about a month and a half, 2 months ago, when Israel struck the port of Hodeidah and a few military facilities in the vicinity. Yesterday, Israel delivered a stronger blow against the more diverse targets in Yemen that are related to the Houthis. And the point here is to send a message to the Houthis that if you continue firing missiles at Israel, endangering our civilians, then there is a price to pay, and please stop firing at Israel. It's a very simple thing.
Where there is also so much that is nothing close to being simple when it comes to the region and where things are going right now. Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus, it's good to have you. Thank you so much for coming on.